I feel like if they were going to release one, but in between the most recent title and then this new one, I feel like they would have announced it already.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a theory, a game theory, a game business theory. Um, so I believe that the Yggdrasil remake was a real project, but it might have been canceled. Um, Now why do I believe this? So, um, I think almost everyone here had some exposure to the Engage leak, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, most infamously, the screenshots that actually were Engage were uh, released on, I think, Reddit. They were posted on Reddit in June, I believe, of 2022. And we didn't see the trailer for Engage until September 13th, 2022. Um, so now I had a chance actually to see the Engage screenshots before they were posted on Reddit. I actually saw them in January of 2022. So the source that gave me a glimpse into these screenshots and gave me some details about them and ongoing projects. Um, Also said that the Yggdrasil remake was a real thing, and that it was actually supposed to come out before Engage. Factors which precipitated it not coming out included the project manager on the Yggdrasil remake ended up leaving the company, and the project was in relative disarray. And Engage was ready sooner than they anticipated, um, because in part because it used what's the engine that it used for
Unity.
Unity? Yes. In part because Unity was an easier to work with engine. So they went ahead and greenlit Engage's release. And at that time, or when this information was shared with me, there were still plans to, according to the source who shared the Engage pictures with me, there were still plans to release the Yggdrasil remake after Engage. Now, obviously, that has not happened. Um, and we're already moving ahead to Fortune's Weave. I think a few things probably precipitated that based on that circumstantial evidence of why the Yggdrasil remake, I believe, existed as a real project and I believe was canceled. I already mentioned one of the reasons it was speculated to be delayed was because of project management difficulties. If the project encountered timeline and budget costs, that could eventually lead to a project getting canceled, but more often leads to like, well, let's just actually recoup some of the money, etc. um, and let's get it out. Now, disclosure here, I am now applying my personal background, my personal professional background, where I was a project manager at a software company that led implementations for 4 years. So I have some knowledge about how these types of things work, making budget decisions about what type of enhancements you invest into, and what goes into those decisions, and having stuff on the dev roadmap for enhancements that do or do not come to fruition for reason A or B or whatever. So I am just applying my professional experience and just surmising based on very circumstantial evidence, and some relative substantiated claims about the existence of the Yggdrasil remake. So, given my professional experience, I think that what probably happened is it was a few factors. One, I think that the project suffered a lot of delays and budget costs to the point where it may have become cost and risk prohibitive to continue with the project. Why did they decide that? I do have another tab here that shows um, the video game sales figures. The sales figures here are in units. These are not dollars. These are units sold. Now we do see here, these are ordered basically as the games came out, but they do have stuff like Fire Emblem Gaiden here includes Gaiden and Shadows of Valencia. So like that's kind of out of order, but everything else is basically in order. It's just kind of whatever world it's related to. Um, so if we kind of take a look at the most recent Fire Emblems, Engage sold 1.6 million copies, Three Houses sold 4 million copies, Fates sold 3 million copies, Awakening sold 2.3 million copies. So we did see a notable decline in copies sold from Three Houses to Engage, which is to be expected. Three Houses was the most mainstream, surpassed. It took Fire Emblem to a new stratosphere, right, business-wise, and within the mainstream purview. But we had been seeing a steady increase from Awakening to Fates to Three Houses. Now there is one game that was between Fates and Three Houses, which was Shadows of Valencia, which sold only 1 million copies. So we have, and even if you want to go back further, we have actually a patterned history now of older Fire Emblem games being made as remakes, selling poorly. So this million in this trend of 2.3 million, 3 million, and then it went down to 1 million for Shadows of Valentia, and then up to 4 million for Three Houses, and then 1.6 for Engage. Part of what might have gone into this business decision is that, this plus Shadow Dragon, it was 250,000 copies, and that was after Radiant Dawn sold, 400,000 copies. It, now that was kind of like going into the decline of Fire Emblem before the Awakening boom, and some of that can be accredited to, just changing the style of the game to appeal to a different audience. The whole waifu emblem, the avatar, etc. But it is another piece of that could be looked at as like they made remakes and people weren't interested in them for whatever reason. It wasn't new content, it wasn't new and exciting enough for the targeted sales market. So if you combined a project that existed that had already suffered budget and timeline cost constraints, and if you combine that with a sales forecast analysis that says that historically remakes do not do well, also combined with the fact that Engage suffered probably underperformed by a decent amount compared to what they probably were hoping for and expecting. I mean, I think what you probably hope for is that it outperforms Three Houses. I think that was an unrealistic hope, but I think that you hope that it actually comes close to selling the same amount of units, and it just did not. Not only did it fall almost down to Shadows of Valentia, but it was even below Fates, which was 3 games, but also below Awakening. So at least there might be some positivity here where it's like, okay, well, it outsold Shadows of Valencia, and they might attribute that to it's new content. It's a new story. It's new content. It's not a remake. So for these reasons, all circumstantial, and given my experience, with having been a project manager for a software company, and the fact that now we have Fortune's Wave coming out, and there is no announced FE4 remake. Okay. Also, another data point that we have is actually Fire Emblem Heroes. We actually have data for how well different characters from different specific Fire Emblem games do, and the usual characters are usually among the like lowest selling characters in the game. So that's another data point that they
Unfortunately.
have. Yes, unfortunately, it is unfortunate, but that's another data point that they have. And I will remind everyone who does not know, actually, Fire Emblem Heroes crossed $1 billion in revenue. It is by far the most successful Fire Emblem IP that exists, and it is a good data source that they have for gauging interest in existing characters.
Do you
So
mind, Justin, real quick, opening up on next to Fire Emblem Heroes and next to Fire Emblem Three Houses the reference source and checking the date on the reference source there?
these ones?
Yeah, I'm watching on the Twitch stream, so I'm a bit delayed. But yeah, whatever the source is.
You said Three Houses in what
It's
other
probably
game?
Heroes. I just want to see the dates on these things, basically.
So this is the Three Houses was updated as of 2022.
Okay, so that's actually like a long time ago.
Yeah.
That's the same source for Engage, is it? Or
Engage is 12. Engage was 2023. So it's probably first year Engage
okay,
sales. Yeah.
yeah. So
Heroes was 19. Was also
I do remember
2022.
that being whenever that was brought up. I do actually kind of remember that being like something I brought up in counter argument, and I think it's still appropriate now. Is that there was just a difference in length of time? Other thing, and I don't really know. Maybe
Yeah.
if we could find like a sales report from 2020 to see what Three Houses sales were and say like 2020.
Let's see.
I think just kind of whatever report that you get it from, because I remember actually reading this report. As of June 2020. Okay. Well, we could see the source.
There's a Reddit post. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Basically, right there. Yeah, makes sense.
Well, this
So,
one also says sold over 3 million copies. It's like, or wait, no, that's just a discussion page. Is on track to sell over 3 million copies. Oh, this is a report from. So okay, what's the report?
That's November 6th, 2020. Yeah. Well, just whatever the source is, I do remember that being a thing where.
Yeah. Okay. Here. So Nintendo reported in May of, or they have sold nearly 3 million copies as of March 2020 from Nintendo themselves.
Can you open the previous report link? Because that's actually, I do think that's like something that Nintendo actually publishes themselves. Like, yeah, here's literally
from
what
Three
we do.
Houses.
Yeah.
Units in tens of thousands.
Yeah, so 2.8 million in whenever this was published.
Yeah, FY20. So let's say it was published May. So yeah, so like, I mean, I would say, yeah, like take these numbers with a grain of salt, but they're still pretty relative. To like,
I'd just like to go like directly to the source if I can, which it appears we can do right now.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so essentially like all the points that I was saying is like it's circumstantial evidence, but it's like it honestly like there's not really a financial reason that they have for like continuing to make remakes. That is just not like there's no evidence that they should do it because it has just been purely not profitable for them in every iteration that they've ever done of it compared to just making a new game.
What of doing like what they did for Shadow Dragon for some of the like games that have not been released in English yet? Like,
what do you
I
mean?
mean, yeah, like basically a port to Virtual Console for Switch.
Yeah, I think that would be fine because they already ported FE4 in Japan on Virtual Console, but not in America.
I mean, it would probably require a little bit of investment.
Yeah.
Because of the translation, but you know, I can't imagine that a port would cost nearly as much as a full remake.
Yeah. So, and we also have evidence of they have canceled previous games before. There is this article on Cernus Forest about Fire Emblem 64, which was a game planned for the N64, and it never came out. So we don't know how far it got down the path, but like the plan did exist to create it, and so there is some evidence on some level that they have canceled games before. So it is so my theory is that the usual remake actually did exist and was canceled because of a confluence of factors of the project was kind of ran into implementation and development issues that cost more than they would like, and they had project management difficulties with people leaving at key times. And then their games were ready before, and then they had like a lot of sales data that just said we we don't have remakes that do well relative to mainline games. Shadows of Valentia being the most recent example of that, where it just is a huge dip down in sales relative to the games around it. And the Fire Emblem Heroes sales data on characters from different FE games, like the usual characters, do not do well in sales wise. So there's just a lot of business evidence that like they probably shouldn't do it if they want to make money. so
Mhm.
so I think one reason they might have been incentivized to go back to the World of Three Houses was because this number now for Engage is probably higher if it's reported as of um, 2023, May 9th, 2023. So we can take a look at it actually.
Which, by the way, that was like 4 months after the game's release,
Yeah.
right? Like,
And it's pretty good for 4 months. So like, yeah. So if this even pushed up to two, maybe three, uh, maybe like 2.5 to 3 million copies. I mean, still not as good as Three Houses, but like a step down from where they want to be. And so maybe they feel like revisiting, um, the most popular lore in the history of the game,
mhm.
is a good business move to get everybody excited about it. And also, they might be incentivized to recoup any loss that they might have incurred on the potential cancellation of the usual project.
So what you're telling me is Giga DLC.
Yeah,
So
That's what
perhaps.
you're
Yeah.
saying. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
what
Massive
I'm hearing is that
sales. Go ahead, Lily.
what I'm just hoping for is if they did cancel a hypothetical remake, if they would try to pivot for a English release on Virtual Console.
I mean, that would probably be the way that they would choose in the future to expose the audience to like the usual um, Fire Emblems. But yeah,
Again, it's because it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't sound like it has nearly as much of a um, risk when it comes to expense.
yeah.
Yeah, I remember for FE1 they did it on the like 30-year anniversary, and I know FE4 came out in 1996. So if they wanted to do a 30-year anniversary for that, then they would just do it in 2026, the virtual console release or whatever, if
Yeah.
they were going to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I say this
For the
because I
port.
am a huge Cello fan, and I want to see FE4 be released to the English audience
Yeah.
officially
Mhm.
Yeah.
instead of Nintendo PC.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. The to kind of like maybe offer some skepticism on this story or the narrative that you brought forward, Justin.
hmm
Because whenever I get in these situations, I try to think up like what's like the next best explanation that like a reasonable person could come up with. Um, and I guess this is my attempt at like doing exactly that, kind of with your story.
Yeah.
Because I think your story is like probably pretty accurate, although this is like the other explanation I'm offering. I do remember that with F11 specifically, the Shadow Dragon,
hmm
there was a lot of poor reception about it for kind of like reasons aside from being a remake. Um, I think people were kind of like disappointed in the like drop in graphical quality from Radiant Dawn to DSFE, which I mean is understandable. You're going from the Wii to the DS, like there's going to be a drop in quality.
hmm
Um, I also just don't remember whether the Wii was 2006, right? When was the DS? Like 2004 or something.
Well, I mean, we
I want to
know
say,
that the Wii. I mean, we know it was at least 2008, at least. So
yeah.
could I just click this and see
So
what
I remember
happens?
there being like some talk around the time of like they're kind of like just going backwards or something. Like, why are
Oh,
they going to this
2004.
older thing that was like releasing something for the new console again or whatever, right?
Yeah,
Um,
looks like 2004 was the earliest release. And
yeah, 2004. Gotta leave these ads. I get it. We should buy Silk Song. No, I'm kidding. Let's get out of here. But yeah, so there was that. There was also people like like people really panned Radiant Dawn as well. You got to remember for having things like no motion controls, having things like no support conversations, which like the no motion controls to us seems kind of silly, but to to people back in like 2008 who like spent all that money on a Wii,
Yeah.
it's not silly to them,
Yes.
right? Like that's like a kind of a reasonable criticism, really. Like
I
of
agree.
the game not really like utilizing the technology, and then likewise with FE11, like it wasn't really that inspirational use of the touchscreen either. There wasn't really anything like cool that it did. And I
Yeah,
understand that they were
it
just trying
didn't
to be
make
like
use of the
faithful to
technology.
I guess like maybe the Wi-Fi battles were right, but well, no, that's like it. I guess it's like actually could be a thing. Like the DS did have Wi-Fi, so
Yeah.
like I guess, but like that's kind of the idea. Is there were I think there are some other things like fatigue with Radiant Dawn, and then also with Shadow Dragon that people didn't like. Also, again, like I understand this is a purely subjective thing, but I mean we've heard like literally so many people talk about how they didn't like the art style of DSFE.
Yeah.
And that was a common complaint even then.
Yeah.
Right. And again, that's completely subjective, but a lot of people experienced it, and that turned a lot of people off of the game entirely.
Yeah.
Right. They were just like, well, I'm not going to play this because it looks like crap.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think there are reasons for that. And then, of course, like FE12, we're not even going to go over because it didn't have a global release. Of course, it's not going to sell that well.
Yeah.
Shadows of Valentia, I think the story does add up for that one. I think like for SOV in particular,
yeah,
it seems kind of weird that a game like that would come out. Maybe they're just like some other weird marketing thing that I just don't remember. I'll be real. I paid like zero attention to Fire Emblem whatsoever, like 2010 to 2020, basically, right? So that entire thing of Fire Emblem, aside from like the few sentences that someone at school would tell me about, I just never heard about it, right?
Right.
I just didn't follow it. So I think I vaguely remember getting told that it had poor marketing, like they just didn't advertise it at all or make any hubbub or like do any trailers or whatever. Perhaps, but this is like a secondhand story that I can't verify whatsoever, so I don't really know how much stock to put into it. And then speaking of secondhand stories that I can't verify whatsoever, that I don't want to put much stock into, is your leaker guy.
Yeah.
I do not remember when I first saw the Engage leak screenshots, but I definitely remember it was before the Reddit post.
Yes.
So it was the place I saw it was VG, which was the 4chan board for Fire Emblem, basically. Like that was just where I saw them, because I would like look there for Fire Emblem memes and whatnot.
Yeah.
To just like get and save in a folder. And then yeah, they showed like the Engage screenshot, like the super blurry ones that we all remember. I say we all remember as though we all do, but like definitely you do. There was like these freaking giga blurry screenshots, and everyone was saying like, "Oh, it's Toothpaste Chan. There's no way this is actually the Fire Emblem game," and it was.
Yeah.
At the moment, I didn't, put any stock in what the leaker said, because it's like, I'm just going to wait for the official announcement and not believe anything until then. And of course, I was wrong in that case. Like Engage totally was a real game. That was an X Fire Emblem.
Yeah.
And then here you're kind of talking about your leaker. I understand that he was right once, but that still isn't enough for me to just like take it on anybody's word, especially when there hasn't been a screenshot that they uploaded or shared with you, or maybe they did share with you a screenshot and you're just not telling us. But again, I don't really, also I don't like know the relationship between you and this guy, whether you like know them personally and they like shared it to you over like Discord DMs or something. I just don't know the nature of that relationship, and if you don't feel like sharing it, you don't have to.
Yeah, I will say it. I'll say it was more personal than seeing it on some other website. I'll just say that, and
Gotcha.
I do not want to say more than that. And I will freely admit, it's like I definitely think that everything I said, was just a really educated guess. I led the whole segment as this is a game business theory. It's putting together a lot of circumstantial evidence that I have, chosen to put like extra value in, and it's also informed by some of my experience, but you could also say biases, as a former software company project manager. And so it's like Could I be seeing things that are not actually there? Totally possible. You know,
Mhm.
we won't know unless we talk to someone at IS and like, you know, they truth serum it out. You know, but
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So I actually, you know, 100% everything that you said is totally valid about like there are other reasons why the remake games didn't do well because they did not adapt to the technology that was being emphasized at the time with Shadow Dragon with the DS features, um, New Mystery also with DS features. Also, it was not released worldwide. Also, as Tryon noted, SOV came out at the end of the 3DS lifespan, and the Switch was coming out.
Mhm.
That is also true. So these are all factors that could have played a role in terms of why the remakes did worse than the mainline games.
Mhm.
But that being said, when you are making a decision, so like as someone who can choose to go forward with a project or not, as from a business financial perspective, um, you are seeing all these pieces of evidence that we're all talking about, and you are deciding what to put value in and what narrative you choose to buy from all the evidence and making a decision based on that. And so it might actually be the case that, you know, the DS remakes suffered more because they did not take advantage of the unique DS system features that all the other games were taking advantage of. But you know, an IS executive now can take a look at this trend of these remakes not doing well, and it might not be accurate for him to have this takeaway, but he still might have the takeaway of, well, the remakes just don't do well, and combined with
Mhm.
the Fire Emblem Heroes sales data, that even if the reason wasn't actually that he believes wasn't the reason why it actually happened, it can still be the reason why the decision was made for them to not go
Mhm.
forward with the project.
Yeah, and I think that the story you proposed,
Yeah.
um, at least everything that you said after the stuff involving your leaker, um, or whatever, all of that stuff, the whole narrative about the remake, I think actually everything you said is a far more likely explanation than everything I said.
Hmm.
Um, I do tend to enjoy just trying to come up with like the next most reasonable one, just because in the process of speaking it out loud, I think sometimes it can be helpful to be like, oh, maybe that actually is just the way it was. Maybe this is just something we hadn't thought of, and then we do it. But I do think your explanation is like by far the most reasonable one.
Hmm.
And well, maybe not by far, by at least a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, and I also don't fault people for using historical data to, make the decision. Really, what else are we going to use?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then lastly, like, and this is just kind of like getting into my own personal opinion as to like why, or like, them just making the new game and like the new story and whatnot. I definitely am a fan of the fact that the business trends and the business incentives in at least this genre of game is to make a new game. My opinion is that I don't really much care for the remakes. I enjoy playing Shadow Dragon and I enjoy playing SOV, but I enjoy playing the games which are original titles a lot more than I enjoy playing those games.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I agree.
I far prefer to see like the new stories, the new characters, the new mechanics. I far prefer to see those things.
Yeah.
And I'm actually very glad that in this case, it just so happens that the business interests of what makes the most money and the gamer interests of what is the most fun happen to align in
Yes.
this case.
Yes.
So I'm actually pretty glad that the Fire Emblem announcement is for a new game and not for a genealogy remake, which I don't know if I told this to you directly or if I said it to anybody on stream or if I just shared it with like my brother and Jimmy FE or whatever. Like, if they did do a Nintendo Direct announcement and it was just an FE4 remake, unless I was like seriously wowed by the gameplay in the trailer, that
Mhm.
would not be enough to purchase the Switch 2. Like,
Yeah.
I would just be like, whatever, just kind of play the old one.
I actually 1,000% agree with everything that you said in relation to this being a new game and not a remake. and how excited that makes me feel, and how that excitement would or would not drive me to buy a Switch 2. I had the same perspective where I was, if it had been a Yggdrasil remake, I would have given it a fair shot. But like something about it being a known quantity of story and reasonably known gameplay, I'm sure they would have injected new features like how all the remakes have. But
Oh
like
yeah.
yeah, I just would not have been nearly as excited about it as I am today with an expansion of Three Houses, world building and lore and new characters, and just a new story to explore.
Yeah, totally. This one I'm very excited to do. So it should be good.
Yeah, they're never gonna start a new platform with a remake. I mean, that's a good
Yeah.
business move. So
Yeah, probably. I was wondering if the more we got into like the Switch 2 time, it made me wonder if they were going to release FE4 Remake, if it was going to be like a Switch 1, probably a Switch 1 title like they did with SOV, or a dual Switch 1 Switch 2.
yeah, another complicating factor in a potential release scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.